But now let's take to the player. You have your star player. And when you know you have someone in your company and stuff that's there and say, well, you know what, for this team to do well, from a sales team, marketing team, education, that teacher, and say, look, what do we need, or that principal needs to make sure that we can take it to the next level. You have that player. That first player, that individual, you talk to them, but you also make sure that they're bought in, right? And bought in means that they also have to commit into learning. If you want them to, others around you become good, you have to also constantly become better and better. And you think about LeBron James, right? He puts $1 million in his body because he knows that's one of his best right now on the floor. His best asset is himself.
Yep.
Right? And I need to take care of myself so I could produce, so I become better, the team becomes better, and there's financial gains, right? But that shows, like, you see the great ones, they don't just be like, well, I'm good, I'm just going to figure this out. You know what? Hey, just the other players. No. How do I keep myself going? And when people understand that I am going to go ahead and put time and effort into buying in, people go a long way, right? And I think that's where LeBron James kind of had played a big part about his physical, of taking care, working on his game, putting time and effort. And I like that sometimes he tapes it, right? Because it gets the other team player, motivates them to know I didn't do that. And there's a great story about Kobe, where that the idea of that him just constantly practicing longer than anyone else. The first one there, first one out, last one out, because he wanted people to know no one's going to train work harder than me, right? So that's huge.
What's interesting is with LeBron James, you can make a direct correlation and compare him to the Lakers organization, because what happens, I feel when people get success, they get lazy.
Yes.
Because you got to the promised land, you won, you want to party, you want to have fun. But with like the LeBron example, he hurt his back. He had that lumbar disc herniation, the famous injury, which he kept under wraps. Wow. It's another very interesting thing, right? Many people will go out there making excuses and reveal what happened, but he kept it. He kept that close to the chest. Only like the confidant, the close guys knew about it. Right. So he got that Navy SEAL trainer, and that guy is the one who kind of helped strengthen up his core and get through it. But you see, he spends like, you said, over $1 million on his body per year. He's got a traveling like physical therapist, massage therapist, trainer. He's got like the hyperbaric oxygen treatment chamber at home. Wow. But what's interesting, again, 36 years old. And the crazy thing is, like, look at the guys who were on the team last year. Okay, Rajon Rondo. Him and Rajon Rondo have had many battles. Celtics, Heat, Celtics, Cavaliers. Dwight Howard, him and the Magic, when he was with Cleveland, the Magic, and Cleveland had many battles. Yeah. But he doesn't let any of those things put like a sour taste in the mouth, right? Oh, this guy might have cursed me out one time. Yeah. It's whatever takes me closer to the goal. Yeah. And the same thing when they brought in Lance Stevenson a couple of years ago to the Lakers. People were like, isn't Lance Stevenson the guy that blew in his ear, put his finger in his ear? Yeah. But he welcomed Lance with open arms. And the Lakers, they could have been lazy as an organization. But you see, Dwight Howard left, they got Marc Gasol. Rondo left, so they got Dennis Schroeder. Yeah. They got rid of Danny Green, so they picked up Wes Matthews. Yeah. And then for power forward, they picked up Montrezl Harrell, about 18 points a game with the Clippers. Right. And then the Clippers play in the same stadium. Yeah. So it's like a shot to the Clippers. So it's just amazing how both are competing to stay at the top.
And that's why in the organization, what's amazing is that, so when you have that first, your star individuals, your star workers in whatever field you are, is that also you're developing them, they're developing themselves, but then they're also open to others to make them better too, right? And that's the key factor, because you could have this, well, I am the star, hey, look, I'm learning, I'm still the best. But understanding that someone that could have been a foe or someone you didn't like for the greater good of the goal of that organization or for that team, for that school, and saying, look, they bring value in, how do we help conflict resolute, have the proper conflict resolution to help fix that and move forward, right? And that's what also happens from the top, and say, hey, look, we have that. I know there might have been some areas, let's bring this up. And we have that a lot, right? We're trying to move somewhere, a team's trying to move forward, but now they have some conflict between the colleagues. And sometimes we'll just deal with it. No, sit down. And that's where, from the top, where people are like, let's figure this out. Let's sit down and get this together. And then how do we move forward? And here's a plan why, if you guys come together, what we could accomplish. And I think that's something like why I feel like sports plays a big part. And LeBron, you got to give him credit where credit's due, right? Yeah, I'm still a Jordan man. Yeah. But LeBron, yes, I give him number 2. But you have to give him a lot of credit in the way he humbles himself and is such a team player. And sometimes people knock him like, oh, he passes the ball. But he's always but hey, fine, he hasn't won that many championships, but he's gone about 10 times to the champion.
Yeah.
You know, so he's got there, and sometimes he hasn't finished it off. But the idea of him looking at reevaluating, especially now, you win a championship, some people leave, right? It's part of business. But then you bring in other people that just say, how can we could still be the top 2-3 teams. What do we need? And that means there has to be conversations like, okay, where do we think we're lacking? Where was the weakness? Where do you think you would need help, right? Having those, you're always going to, talk to the people on the ground level is very important. I think that's something that you see great teams do. That like it's not all up there, right? And sometimes you got to have that because if you don't, it could break away, or you can have bad taste. Like example Houston, with the Bulls,
with the Houston Rockets. I don't know if you know what's going.
I mean, right now, especially with his with the Houston Rockets now, good example owner with his views, personal views. That also bothered them, right? You know,
and the fact that you were saying that you have to keep the top guys informed, right?
Yeah.
Because it is a players' league.
Yep.
But with James Harden, they were saying that James Harden and Westbrook were not consulted on some moves, so they were both like disenfranchised. They're not happy. They want out because you're not consulting the superstars. Right. Well, you're gonna say the Bulls. I don't know.
Yeah, and the same like how the Bulls were. Hey, they won 6 straight. They could have maybe won 7th, right? And some of them thought they would. You know, there was that whole Last Dance movie where they're saying, well, the GM kind of said, I don't need to ask them anything, right?
Yep.
You know,
old school management style.
So, well, you know what? I'm the one who's making this happen, and say, no, you got to make sure that even if we're watching things from the balcony, you need to talk to the people on the floor, right? You got to get there, just make sure everything's all right on the field. If you're watching, from the seats, and I think when you don't have that, then there's distaste and say, you break up sometimes an opportunity for another year or two, and they didn't have now since that. It's been 16 to 20 years. Nothing's really been happening. Yeah,
we've gotten lucky with some good draft picks, but Derrick Rose goes down, and the Bulls are never the same.